Berlin, 1948. The city was a ghost of its former self. Streets once filled with laughter now echoed only with footsteps and the clatter of ration carts. Burned-out buildings stood like skeletons, blackened by smoke and time, their empty windows staring like the hollow eyes of the dead. Rubble covered the sidewalks, twisted metal poked through cracked stones, and the faint smell of soot never really left the air. Children played among ruins where gardens once bloomed. In one of those shattered neighborhoods, behind a broken stone wall and a makeshift gate of scrap wood, lived an 8-year-old girl named Anna Keller. Her small hands were always dusty from gathering bits of wood for the stove, and her bright blue eyes carried a sadness too old for her age. Her mother, Elsa, did her best to keep the house standing. She had lost her husband in the war, and though she never spoke of him, the quiet ache in her movements told the story every day. Each morning Anna woke to the same sound, the deep, steady hum of aircraft engines above. It began as a faint murmur, then grew into a rolling thunder that shook the glassless windows. British planes flying low and heavy with supplies, heading toward the airfields of West Berlin. They came every few minutes, day and night, bringing food, coal, medicine, everything that kept the city alive. To the adults, that sound meant hope. To Anna, it meant fear. The planes roared directly over their tiny garden, sending the hens scattering into corners and the few surviving flowers trembling. Once, when one flew so low the ground seemed to tremble, Anna had screamed and dropped her basket of kindling. "Mama," she cried, clutching her mother's arm as a shadow passed overhead. "They'll kill our chickens again." Her mother looked up from the stove, smiling faintly, though her eyes looked tired. "They're not trying to hurt us, mein Engel," she said softly. "The British pilots bring food for all of Berlin. Without them, we'd have nothing." Anna frowned, still trembling. "But why must they be so loud? The sky sounds angry." Elsa stroked her hair gently. "Because even kindness must fight its way through the noise of war," she whispered. But to an 8-year-old, logic didn't matter. The chickens had stopped laying eggs weeks ago, and eggs were how Elsa traded for bread. Every lost egg meant another hungry day. That evening, as dusk painted the ruins in pale gold, Anna sat by the cracked window. The streets were quiet except for the wind whispering through the holes in the walls. She watched another plane crawl across the grey sky, its wings glinting like silver knives against the fading light. Somewhere inside that machine, she imagined a man sitting behind glass, staring down at her broken world, perhaps not even knowing what his noise had taken from her. She picked up a dull pencil and a torn piece of paper from an old-school notebook. Her mother was asleep, exhausted, her head resting against the table. The candle beside her flickered low. Anna began to write, her tongue pressed to her lip in concentration. "Dear British pilot," she wrote carefully, each letter uneven but determined. "Please tell your friends to fly higher. Your planes scare our chickens, and they have stopped laying eggs. If you must fly, could you drop candy near our garden so I know it's you? Then I won't be afraid." She paused, frowning slightly. Then, with a child's careful imagination, she drew a small picture of their house, the garden, and the 2 white hens that had survived the winter. She folded the note, kissed it once, and tied it to a small rock with a piece of twine. She didn't know where to send it, but she was determined. The next morning, after breakfast, a thin slice of bread with watered milk, she tucked the note under her coat and ran to the open field near the railway line. There, the planes flew low before turning toward Tempelhof Airfield. The roar above made her hair whip across her face. She waited until the sound grew near, heart pounding, and when the biggest plane swept overhead, she threw the rock high into the air. The note fluttered wildly, spinning, then vanished into the wind. For days, nothing happened. Each time a plane passed, Anna would run outside, craning her neck, eyes scanning the sky. Nothing, just engines and shadows. By the 5th day, she decided the note must have fallen into the river or been lost in a pile of rubble. Then one cool August morning a knock echoed through their door. Elsa wiped her hands on her apron and opened it, startled to see a British soldier standing there, tall, broad-shouldered, his flight jacket dusty, his cap tucked under one arm. His German was clumsy, but his smile was warm. "Mrs. Keller?" he asked carefully. "I believe this belongs to your daughter." He held out the small, crumpled letter. Anna gasped. "You found it," she said, her voice barely a whisper. The man knelt down to her level. "Found it near the airfield," he said, his accent thick but kind. "My name's Flight Lieutenant Thomas Bennett, and I brought something for you." From his pocket, he pulled a small bar of milk chocolate wrapped in silver paper. "We can't make the planes quieter," he said, smiling, "but maybe this helps the chickens forgive us." Anna stared wide-eyed. Chocolate was something she had only heard about in stories. She took it in both hands as if holding a treasure. "Thank you," she whispered. Elsa's eyes softened. "You've made her year, Lieutenant." Thomas chuckled. "Then we're even. Her letter made mine." From that day, something changed. Every time Thomas flew over their neighborhood, he dipped the wings of his plane, a secret signal only one little girl understood, and sometimes, when he could, he tied little candy bars to handkerchief parachutes and dropped them near her street. Word spread quickly. Children began gathering in the fields, laughing, chasing sweets that drifted from the sky like tiny gifts of peace. But for Anna, it wasn't about the candy. It was about being seen, knowing that someone, somewhere above the clouds, cared enough to remember her name. Weeks turned into months, the blockade worsened, the Soviets tightened their grip, and the winter came early and cruel. Coal ran out, windows froze over, people burned furniture to stay alive, yet the planes came, endless, steady, relentless, carrying hope through the bitter cold. Anna wrote again, her handwriting neater this time. "Dear Mr. Bennett, thank you for the chocolate and for the wing wave. The chickens are laying again, not many, but enough. I'm not afraid anymore when I hear your planes. I wave every time." She never expected him to reply. But 2 weeks later, a British mail truck stopped near their street, and the driver handed her a letter with a red seal. Inside was a photograph, a young pilot beside his plane, smiling, sunlight flashing off the metal. Underneath, a note. "Dear Anna, I'm glad the chickens are happy again. I will wave every time I fly over your house. Be brave. You and your mother are stronger than you know. Your friend, Thomas." She carried that photo everywhere. The blockade ended in 1949. The planes stopped coming. The sky grew quiet again. Berlin began to rebuild. Children returned to school, streets filled slowly with life and laughter again. But Anna never forgot the man who waved from the sky. Years passed. She grew up, married a teacher named Marcus, and had 2 children of her own. In a small wooden box under her bed, she kept the letter, the photo, and the silver wrapper from that first chocolate bar. Sometimes when her daughter asked about the war, she would take them out and tell the story of the pilot who made the sky kind again. Meanwhile, Flight Lieutenant Thomas Bennett returned to England. He married, had a son, and continued flying with the RAF. But sometimes, when clouds gathered and engines roared, he'd find himself glancing down at the earth, half expecting to see a little girl by a garden waving up at him. In 1972, more than 2 decades later, Thomas was posted to Germany again, this time as a liaison officer at RAF Gatow in West Berlin. The city was changed now, divided by a wall, yet alive. One afternoon, while attending a civic event at Tempelhof, he overheard a woman talking about the airlift. "They called her the girl with the white chickens," she said with a smile. "She used to wave every time the planes came." Thomas turned sharply. "What did you say?" The woman blinked. "It's a local story. An old one. I think she's here today." She pointed across the hall. "That's her, Anna Keller." Thomas's heart began to race. He followed her gaze and saw a woman in her early 30s standing beside a young boy, explaining the model planes on display. Her face had changed with time, but her eyes, clear, blue, curious, were unmistakable. He approached quietly. "Excuse me," he said in careful German. "Did you once write a letter to a British pilot about some frightened chickens?" Anna froze, her lips parted. Slowly tears filled her eyes. "You," she whispered. "You're him." He smiled softly. "Still scaring chickens, I'm afraid." Anna laughed, covering her mouth. "You really came back." "Took me 24 years, he said. "Sorry for being late." They sat together for hours, talking like old friends who'd simply paused a conversation decades ago. He told her about the exhaustion of those airlift days, how each flight felt like a miracle. She told him about the long winters, the hunger, and how one small act of kindness had made her believe in goodness again, even from those who had once been enemies. In the middle of their talk, Anna's son tugged at her sleeve. "Mama," he whispered, "is this the man from your story?" Anna smiled. "Yes, love, this is the man who dropped chocolate from the sky." Thomas bent down, smiling. "And I still do," he said, handing the boy a bar of Cadbury's. From that day on, the Keller and Bennett families became inseparable. Letters, phone calls, visits, a friendship that spanned borders and generations. When Anna's husband passed away young, Thomas flew to Berlin to comfort her, holding her hands as if she were his own sister. Years later, when Thomas's wife died, Anna travelled to England and stayed with him for months. By the time the Berlin Wall fell in 1989, they were family in all but name. Her children called him Uncle Thomas. His grandchildren called her Aunt Anna. And every Christmas, without fail, Thomas sent a parcel of chocolate to Berlin, wrapped carefully with a note. "For the girl who taught me that kindness can outlast any war." He lived long enough to see Berlin reunited. In 1995, on the 50th anniversary of the end of the war, he returned to Tempelhof as a guest of honor. Anna stood beside him, holding the same photograph he'd sent her in 1948. The crowd applauded as they told their story, not of soldiers or battles, but of a frightened girl, a letter, and a pilot who believed compassion could heal what bombs had broken. Halfway through the ceremony, as the applause echoed, Thomas leaned close and whispered, "Do you remember how it all started?" Anna smiled through tears. "With a letter and 2 terrified chickens." He laughed softly. "Best letter I ever got." Years later, when Thomas passed away in his home in Kent, a small wooden box arrived at Anna's doorstep. Inside was his flight badge, a photograph, and a note written in his careful hand. "For Anna, my dearest friend, you reminded me that even in ruins there can be light. You gave me a family where there was once only duty. Forever your pilot in the sky, Thomas." Anna placed the note beside the photo she had kept since childhood. That night, as the sun dipped beyond the city, she looked up at the fading contrails above Berlin. She smiled faintly. "Good night, Thomas," she whispered. The story of the girl and the British pilot became part of Berlin's history, a legend of kindness told in classrooms and newspapers. And every time a plane crossed the sky, children would look up, wondering if maybe, just maybe, it carried chocolate, or something even sweeter, a reminder that peace begins with small acts seen by those who dare to look up.